15 Hollywood legends slipped away, not on a stage, not in a hospital bed, but in the quiet of their sleep. Some called it peaceful, others called it haunting. Tonight, we uncover the final nights of stars, whose goodbyes came softly and left behind stories that will never truly rest. Number 1. Audrey Hepburn. In the early morning of January 20th, 1993, the world lost one of its most beloved stars. At her home in Tolokienas, Switzerland, Audrey Hepburn passed away quietly in her sleep. The actress who once graced the screen with a smile that could light up Rome and Paris slipped away as peacefully as she had lived. She was 63 years old and had been battling a rare form of abdominal cancer for several months. Surrounded by her 2 sons and her close companion, Robert Wolders, she had returned home after surgery and treatment in Los Angeles, choosing to spend her final days among the fields and flowers she loved. Her home overlooked the Swiss countryside, where she would often walk in the gardens barefoot, even as her strength faded. Friends said she wanted to go gently, without hospitals or crowds, and she did. The evening before she passed, she had dinner with her family and watched a movie. That night, she drifted into sleep and never woke again. Her nurse described the moment as calm, with the soft sound of wind outside and her favorite white tulips on the table beside her bed. To the world, Audrey Hepburn was more than an actress. She was the face of grace itself. From Time's Breakfast at Tiffany's Times to Time's Roman Holiday Asterisk, she brought a rare lightness to every role. But beyond the screen, she devoted her final years to helping children as a UNICEF ambassador. She visited famine zones, walked through refugee camps, and carried sick children in her arms long after her own health began to fail. She once said, "The best thing to hold on to in life is each other." Those words now feel like her last gift. When the news broke, fans gathered outside her home, lighting candles and leaving flowers. Gregory Peck wept on camera as he read her favorite poem. Her funeral was simple, elegant, and private, exactly as she had wanted. Today, when people speak of Audrey Hepburn, they remember not her illness, but her kindness, her quiet courage, and the way she left this world gently, in her sleep, like the closing scene of a beautiful film. Which of Audrey Hepburn's movies touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 2. Sean Connery. On the morning of October 31st, 2020, at his home in Nassau, Bahamas, the man once known as James Bond took his final rest. He was 90 years old and had been in declining health for several years. That night, he went to bed as usual beside his wife, Micheline Roquebrune. When the sun rose, he was gone. His family later shared that he passed away peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by the quiet sound of waves outside his villa. For the world, it was the end of an era. Sean Connery was not just the first actor to play James Bond. He was the one who defined him. From Time's Dr. No Times in 1962 to Time's Diamonds Are Forever asterisk, he brought charm, wit, and danger to the screen in a way no one ever matched. But beyond the tuxedo and the martini, Connery was a man shaped by humble beginnings. Born in Edinburgh, Scotland, he left school at 16, worked as a milkman, a coffin polisher, and even a bodybuilder before he ever stood in front of a camera. His career stretched over 5 decades, earning him an Academy Award for Time's The Untouchables asterisk, and titles like Time's Sir Sean Connery, times when he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth in 2000. Yet fame never softened his Scottish pride or his plain-spoken nature. Friends remembered him as fiercely private, loyal, and often blunt. In his later years, he retired completely from acting, saying he had done enough, that he wanted peace and sunlight. In Nassau, that peace found him. He spent his final years swimming in the sea, painting and tending to his garden. He often said he would prefer to die at home rather than in a hospital, and his wish was granted. His wife later said he was not suffering. He slipped away in his sleep, and that was what he wanted. The world mourned him deeply. Tributes poured in from fellow actors and leaders. From Daniel Craig to the First Minister of Scotland, movie theaters played Time's Goldfinger times again, and fans toasted him with the famous line, "Shaken, not stirred." His ashes were later scattered across Scotland and the Bahamas, joining the 2 places he loved most. Sean Connery's farewell was quiet, dignified, and timeless, just like the man himself. Number 3. Betty White. On the morning of December 31st, 2021, the final day of the year, Betty White passed away peacefully in her sleep at her home in Brentwood, California. She was 99 years old, just weeks away from celebrating her 100th birthday. Her assistant found her still in bed, her glasses beside her, and the television softly playing reruns of Time's The Golden Girls Asterisk, the show that made her a national treasure. The night before, she had gone to bed early after reading through fan letters that continued to arrive by the hundreds each week. Her doctor confirmed she died of natural causes, quietly, without pain. In many ways, it was the ending everyone had wished for her, gentle, simple, and kind, just like the life she lived. Betty White had been working in entertainment for more than 8 decades, longer than almost anyone in Hollywood history. She began on radio in the 1930s, moved to television in the 50s, and never stopped. She broke barriers as one of the first women to produce her own sitcom, Asterisk Life with Elizabeth Asterisk, and later won hearts as the sweet but sharp Rose Nyland on Time's The Golden Girls Asterisk. She was known for her bright humor, her perfect comedic timing, and her ability to make generations laugh without ever losing warmth. Off-screen, she had a deep love for animals. She worked tirelessly for the Los Angeles Zoo and animal welfare charities, often saying she preferred the company of dogs to most people. Even in her later years, she refused to retire, appearing in commercials, talk shows, and tributes. Her secret, she once said, was to keep busy and never stop laughing. When the news of her passing broke, it stunned millions. Fans gathered outside her home with flowers and thank you notes. Newspapers around the world printed her photo on the front page with one simple headline: "Thank you for being a friend." Tributes came from fellow actors, presidents, and everyday people who felt she had somehow been part of their lives. Her funeral was private, attended by close friends and family, exactly as she had wished. There were no long speeches, no grand farewells, just quiet gratitude and a sense that the laughter she left behind would never fade. Betty White's final night was one of peace, ending a life that had brought light to millions. Number 4. Ginger Rogers. In the early hours of April 25, 1995, at her home in Rancho Mirage, California, Ginger Rogers passed away quietly in her sleep. She was 83 years old and had spent the last evening watching one of her old musicals with her housekeeper, humming softly along to the music. Her health had been fragile for some time, weakened by diabetes and heart issues, but she had remained cheerful and graceful until the end. The woman who once danced across silver screens beside Fred Astaire took her final bow without an audience, leaving behind a legacy of elegance and movement that defined an entire era of Hollywood. During the golden age of film, Ginger Rogers became synonymous with beauty, charm, and strength. She was not only Astaire's dazzling partner in 10 films, but also an Academy Award-winning actress for her role in Time's Kitty Foyle Times in 1940. Her story began far from the glamour of Los Angeles. Born in Independence, Missouri, and raised by a single mother who was a writer and film critic, Ginger learned resilience early. She started performing in vaudeville at a young age, and by her 20s, she had already conquered Broadway. What made her stand out was not just her ability to dance, but her humor, her wit, and her willingness to play women who were independent and smart. She famously said, "I did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in heels." In her later years, Ginger stepped away from the camera, but never from the stage. She appeared in theater productions, gave lectures about old Hollywood, and spent her time painting and writing. Her home in the desert was filled with sunlight, music, and the soft rustle of scripts and photographs from a life fully lived. On that quiet April morning, when she failed to come down for breakfast, her staff found her still in bed, serene and untouched by pain. The coroner's report listed natural causes. The film community mourned her passing with deep affection. Television stations replayed Time's Top Hat Times and Time's Swing Time Asterisk, and audiences once again watched her glide effortlessly across the floor, radiant as ever. Ginger Rogers' life ended the way she had danced, graceful, effortless, and timeless, as if the music had simply slowed and faded into silence. Number 5. Angela Lansbury. On the morning of October 11, 2022, in her home in Los Angeles, Angela Lansbury passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 96 years old and had been in good spirits just days before, talking with family and listening to classical music in her favorite chair by the window. Her family said she went quietly, without suffering, surrounded by love. It was only 5 days before her 97th birthday. Angela Lansbury's career spanned more than 7 decades, from the golden age of Hollywood to the modern era of television. She made her film debut in Time's Gaslight Times in 1944 and was nominated for an Academy Award at only 19. Her early performances in Time's The Picture of Dorian Gray Times and Time's The Manchurian Candidate Times showed her range long before the world knew her. As Jessica Fletcher, the brilliant mystery writer in Time's Murder, she wrote Asterisk. For 12 years, she was a Sunday night tradition in American homes, solving crimes with warmth, wit, and poise. Off-screen, she was known for her humility and generosity. Despite her fame, she lived quietly with her husband, Peter Shaw, and focused on family. After his passing in 2003, she continued to act on stage and screen, returning to Broadway and lending her voice to beloved characters like Mrs. Potts in Time's Beauty and the Beast Asterisk. Her rendition of Tale as Old as Time remains one of the most cherished moments in Disney history. In her later years, she received countless honors, including an honorary Academy Award and multiple Tony Awards. Yet she often said her greatest joy came from the letters she received from fans of Time's Murder. She wrote Asterisk, many of whom thanked her for creating a character who was intelligent, independent, and kind. On that October morning when news of her passing broke, tributes flooded in from around the world. Actors, singers, and fans shared memories of her grace and kindness. Theaters dimmed their lights, and countless people re-watched her performances to remember the woman who could play both villain and hero with equal brilliance. Angela Lansbury's farewell was gentle and dignified, a quiet closing curtain on a life that gave so much art, comfort, and inspiration. Which of Angela Lansbury's performances has stayed with you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Number 6. Olivia de Havilland. On the morning of July 26, 2020, at her home in Paris, Olivia de Havilland passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 104 years old, the last surviving star from Hollywood's golden age. Her longtime assistant said she had enjoyed dinner the night before, listened to classical music, and went to bed smiling. When the sun rose over the quiet Parisian street, she was gone, leaving behind a legacy that stretched across nearly a century of cinema. Born in Tokyo in 1916 to British parents, Olivia de Havilland grew up in California and entered film during the era of black and white epics. Her beauty, poise, and intelligence made her one of the most admired actresses of her time. She starred in classics such as Time's The Adventures of Robin Hood, Times alongside Errol Flynn, and Time's Gone with the Wind Asterisk, where she portrayed the gentle and noble Melanie Hamilton. That role earned her eternal recognition and remains one of the most beloved performances in American film history. Her career was not only defined by talent, but also by courage. In the 1940s, she fought against the studio system that controlled actors through restrictive contracts. She took Warner Brothers to court and won, changing Hollywood forever. The de Havilland decision became a landmark ruling that gave performers more freedom and respect. She later won 2 Academy Awards for Times, To Each His Own Times, and Time's The Heiress Asterisk, proving she was more than just a beautiful face. She was a force of independence and dignity. In her later years, Olivia moved to Paris, where she lived a quiet, cultured life filled with art, books, and correspondence. She was known for her wit, sending handwritten notes, and speaking fluent French with friends. Even in her 90s, she attended film festivals and honored her contemporaries, always immaculately dressed, still radiating old-world grace. When her death was announced, tributes poured in from around the globe. Directors, historians, and fans celebrated her as the embodiment of the golden age of Hollywood, elegant, strong, and unyielding. Olivia de Havilland's peaceful passing in her sleep felt like the closing of a grand curtain, the final chapter of an era when cinema was young and dreams seemed endless. Number 7. John Candy. On the night of March 4th, 1994, while staying at a small hotel in Durango, Mexico, John Candy passed away quietly in his sleep. He was 43 years old, in the middle of filming the comedy Time's Wagons East Asterisk. His body was discovered the next morning by his bodyguard and personal assistant, lying peacefully in bed. The official cause of death was a heart attack, though those close to him said he had shown no signs of distress the night before. He had enjoyed dinner, joked with the crew, and called his children to say goodnight. John Candy was one of the most beloved comedians of his generation, a man whose warmth and humor reached across every film he touched. Born in Toronto, Canada, he became famous as part of the Times' Second City Television Times cast, then crossed into Hollywood with a series of unforgettable roles in the 1980s. Audiences adored him in Times' Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, **, Uncle Buck, **, and Times' Cool Runnings, **. His characters were often big-hearted, clumsy, and kind of reflection of the man himself. Behind the laughter, John Candy was known for his humility and generosity. He often said he never wanted fame to change him, and he lived that way. Friends remembered that he would stay after long filming days to sign autographs, tell stories, or share meals with crew members. Despite his success, he struggled quietly with health issues and weight concerns, something he spoke about with honesty and humor. He had promised his family that Times Wagons East Times would be his last film before taking time off to focus on his health and spend more time with his children. In Durango, he stayed in a small private house rather than a luxury hotel. Locals remembered him as cheerful, always greeting them with a smile. The night he passed, the sky was calm, the desert air cool. His death shocked the world, not only because he was so young, but because his presence felt so large, so full of life. After his passing, tributes came from every corner of the film industry. Steve Martin, his friend and co-star, said, "He was a real man, kind and gentle, and he made everyone around him better." The laughter John Candy gave to the world still echoes, and the way he left quietly, in his sleep, seemed like the gentlest curtain call for a man who had spent his life making others smile. Number 8. Ray Liotta. In the early morning hours of May 26, 2022, while staying in a hotel in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, Ray Liotta passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 67 years old and had been in the middle of filming a movie titled Times Dangerous Waters **. His fiancée, JC Nidalo, was with him during the trip. She later shared that he had gone to bed after a long day of filming and never woke up. There was no struggle, no pain, only quiet stillness. Ray Liotta was one of the most distinctive actors of his generation, best known for his intense presence and piercing blue eyes. Born in Newark, New Jersey, and adopted as an infant, he grew up believing that life was something you had to fight for. That belief carried him through years of struggle before he became a star. His breakout role came in 1986 as Shoeless Joe Jackson in Times' Field of Dreams **. But it was in 1990 with Times' Goodfellas Times that he became immortal. As Henry Hill, he gave one of the defining performances of modern cinema, full of energy, charm, and danger. Despite being known for playing criminals and tough men, Ray Liotta was soft-spoken in real life. Friends described him as shy, deeply loyal, and thoughtful. He preferred quiet dinners to Hollywood parties and often said he valued time with family more than fame. After years of steady work in both film and television, his career had entered a new renaissance in the 2020s. He appeared in Times' Marriage Story **, The Many Saints of Newark **, and several upcoming projects, showing that his talent had not dimmed with time. In the weeks before his passing, he had spoken in interviews about feeling grateful and fulfilled. He had planned to marry, continue acting, and spend more time with his daughter. Those who saw him on set said he seemed healthy and happy. When the news broke of his sudden death, it stunned colleagues and fans alike. Martin Scorsese called him a remarkable actor with a heart full of humanity. His body was later returned to Los Angeles, where a private memorial was held. Friends and co-stars remembered his intensity, his humor, and his kindness. Ray Liotta's final sleep came quietly, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable roles and a life lived with rare authenticity. Number 9. Laurence Olivier. On the evening of July 11, 1989, at his countryside home in Steyning, West Sussex, Laurence Olivier passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 82 years old, surrounded by the soft summer air and the quiet rustle of the English garden he loved. His health had been fragile for years due to complications from cancer and a long battle with lung disease, but his final hours were tranquil. His wife, actress Joan Plowright, later said he had spent the day reading scripts and reminiscing about the stage. That night, he simply drifted away. Laurence Olivier was often called the greatest actor of the 20th century. His mastery of both stage and screen defined generations of performers. Born in 1907 in Surrey, England, he began performing as a child and rose to become one of the founding giants of British theatre. He He brought Shakespeare to life with unmatched energy, turning roles like Hamlet, Othello, and Richard III into cultural milestones. His film adaptation of Time's Hamlet Times in 1948 won the Academy Award for Best Picture and earned him an Oscar for Best Actor, making him the first person to direct himself to such an honor. His career stretched for more than 6 decades, covering stage, film, and television. He became known not just for his brilliance but for his perfectionism, often rehearsing lines until every breath felt deliberate. Yet behind the legend was a man of humor and vulnerability. He faced deep personal struggles, including a complicated marriage to actress Vivien Leigh, whose mental illness cast long shadows over their years together. In his later life, he was knighted and later made a peer of the realm, becoming Baron Olivier of Brighton. Despite his fame, he remained modest in private life, preferring evenings at home with family to public appearances. By the time of his passing, he had earned every major award in acting, from Oscars and Emmys to knighthood and lifetime achievement honors. When the news of his death reached the world, tributes poured in from every corner of the arts. The National Theatre, which he helped establish, dimmed its lights. Colleagues called him the actor who taught us what greatness looks like. Laurence Olivier's final sleep was calm and unbroken, marking the end of an era in which art, discipline, and passion found their purest voice through him. Number 10. Bob Saget. On the afternoon of January 9, 2022, hotel staff at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando, Florida, discovered Bob Saget lying unresponsive in his bed. The medical examiner later confirmed he had passed away in his sleep during the night from a head injury, likely caused by an accidental fall before going to bed. He was 65 years old. There were no signs of struggle or distress, only a quiet room and the stillness that follows rest. Bob Saget had performed a stand-up show in Jacksonville the previous evening, and friends said he seemed happy and full of energy. He even posted on social media, thanking the audience and saying he was loving every minute of being back on tour. Hours later, that message became his final public words. Born in Philadelphia in 1956, Bob Saget was a comedian, actor, and storyteller whose humor shaped an entire generation. He became a household name as Danny Tanner, the loving father on Time's Full House *, and as the original host of Time's America's Funniest Home Videos *. His warm smile and wholesome presence on television contrasted with his sharp, often irreverent stand-up comedy. He built his career on honesty, kindness, and a deep understanding of what made people laugh and cry in equal measure. Off-screen, he was known for his generosity and heart. He lost his sister to scleroderma, a rare autoimmune disease, and dedicated years to raising awareness and funds for research. Friends described him as the person who never stopped caring, a man who always called, always showed up, and always made others feel seen. When his death was announced, the reaction was immediate and emotional. Co-stars from Time's Full House Times spoke of him as family. John Stamos called him the brother everyone wishes they had. Fans flooded social media with memories of growing up watching him, their childhoods intertwined with his gentle humor. Candlelight vigils appeared outside his Hollywood home, where people left flowers and photos. Bob Saget's farewell came softly, without warning, and yet it carried the same warmth he gave to the world. He left behind laughter that spanned decades and comforted millions. Which of Bob Saget's roles or moments do you remember most? Share your thoughts below and keep his light alive through your memories. Number 11. Cloris Leachman. In the early morning of January 27, 2021, at her home in Encinitas, California, Cloris Leachman passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 94 years old. Her daughter said she had gone to bed the night before after watching one of her favorite movies and talking about plans for her garden. She had been in good spirits and showed no sign of pain. When her caretaker checked on her the next morning, she was gone, leaving behind a lifetime of laughter, courage, and brilliance. Cloris Leachman's career was one of the longest and most versatile in Hollywood history. Born in Des Moines, Iowa in 1926, she began as a pageant contestant and theater performer before making her way to the silver screen. Her early film appearances in Time's Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid Times and Time's The Last Picture Show Times displayed a natural depth that won her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1972. From there, her range expanded beyond imagination, drama, comedy, satire, even horror. She could do it all. Her collaboration with Mel Brooks defined much of her comedic legacy. As Frau Blucher in Time's Young Frankenstein *, she became immortal in pop culture, her sharp timing and fearless humor stealing every scene. She later joined television audiences as Phyllis Lindstrom on Time's The Mary Tyler Moore Show Times and her own spinoff, *Phyllis*. Across decades, she collected 8 Primetime Emmy Awards, tying the record for the most ever won by a performer. Behind her wit and boldness was a woman of great kindness. She often volunteered for animal welfare causes and remained fiercely independent throughout her life. Even in her 90s, she continued to work, appearing on reality shows, independent films, and voice roles that introduced her to younger generations. Her secret, she once said, was to never take herself too seriously and to always keep learning. When news of her death spread, tributes came from every corner of the entertainment world. Colleagues remembered her as daring, unpredictable, and always genuine. The Academy described her as one of a kind, impossible to replace. Cloris Leachman's final rest mirrored her spirit, calm, unforced, and full of grace, the kind of ending that only a performer of her magnitude could make feel both final and beautiful. Number 12. James Arness. On the morning of June 3, 2011, at his home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, James Arness passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 88 years old and had been in declining health for several years, but he remained lucid and cheerful until his final evening. His family shared that he went to bed early after watching an old Western movie and never woke up again. There was no pain, only stillness and quiet dignity, the same qualities that defined his life and career. James Arness became a household name through his portrayal of Marshal Matt Dillon in Time's Gunsmoke*, one of the longest-running television shows in history. For 20 years, from 1955 to 1975, he embodied the stoic lawman who brought justice to Dodge City. Standing 6 feet 7 inches tall, with a deep voice and a calm gaze, he was the perfect image of the American cowboy hero, strong, loyal, and silently compassionate. Born in Minneapolis in 1923, he served in the United States Army during World War II and was severely wounded at Anzio, Italy. That injury left him with a limp that he carried for the rest of his life, though he never let it slow him down. When he returned home, he found his way into acting almost by accident, encouraged by his friend and mentor John Wayne. It was Wayne who recommended him for the role in Time's Gunsmoke*, a part that would define his legacy and make him one of television's most enduring figures. Off-screen, James Arness was known for his modesty and deep sense of privacy. He rarely gave interviews, preferring a quiet life with his family and his horses. He spent his later years writing, painting, and enjoying the California sunshine. Those who knew him described him as kind, patient, and utterly genuine, a man whose strength came from decency rather than fame. After his death, his family released a letter he had written years earlier to be shared with his fans. In it, he thanked them for their loyalty and friendship over the decades. He signed it simply, "Your friend, Jim Arness." That message, like his final rest, reflected the heart of a man who lived honestly, served bravely, and left the world as peacefully as he lived in it. Number 13. Doris Roberts. In the early morning of April 17, 2016, at her home in Los Angeles, Doris Roberts passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 90 years old. Her family said she had spent the evening before enjoying dinner with friends and laughing over stories from her long career. She went to bed feeling happy and content, never showing signs of illness or distress. When she failed to wake the next morning, it was discovered she had died from natural causes, leaving behind a legacy of warmth, humor, and unmatched talent. Doris Roberts was best known to millions as Marie Barone, the sharp-tongued but loving mother in the sitcom Time's Everybody Loves Raymond *. For nearly a decade, her character became an iconic figure in American television, the meddling matriarch whose sarcasm and heart made every family argument both hilarious and touching. The role earned her 4 Emmy Awards and a permanent place in the hearts of viewers who saw pieces of their own mothers in her. Her path to success had been long and full of perseverance. Born in St. Louis in 1925 and raised in New York, she began acting on stage before transitioning to television in the 1950s. She appeared in hundreds of productions, from dramas like Time's Remington Steele Times to films such as Time's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation *. She was known for her impeccable timing, her expressive face, and her ability to make even the smallest role unforgettable. Beyond acting, Doris Roberts was a fierce advocate for the elderly and for artists' rights. She testified before Congress about age discrimination in Hollywood, insisting that creativity and purpose do not expire with age. She was also known for her compassion, often mentoring younger actors and hosting charity dinners in her own kitchen, where she cooked traditional Italian dishes for friends and fans alike. In her final years, she continued to work steadily, her energy and wit undiminished. Those close to her said she loved her independence and had no fear of aging or death. When the news of her passing reached the public, tributes came from all corners of the entertainment world. Ray Romano called her a true mom, both on and off screen. Doris Roberts' final rest came gently, just as she had lived with humor, dignity, and love that never stopped giving. Number 14. George Kennedy. On the morning of February 28, 2016, at an assisted living facility in Middleton, Idaho, George Kennedy passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 91 years old. His grandson later shared that he had suffered from heart disease in his later years, but his final moments were calm, without pain or struggle. He had gone to bed early the night before, after watching one of his favorite westerns, and never woke up again. The quiet of that morning reflected the steady grace of a man whose career had spanned more than half a century. George Kennedy was one of the most recognizable character actors in Hollywood history. Born in New York City in 1925, he began performing at a young age before serving in the United States Army during World War II, where he earned several medals for bravery. After the war, he worked in radio and television before breaking into film. His big breakthrough came in 1967 with Time's Cool Hand Luke*, where his portrayal of Dragline, a tough but loyal prisoner, won him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. The role showcased both his strength and humanity, traits that defined much of his career. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, George Kennedy became a familiar face in every genre. He appeared in disaster epics like Time's Airport*, gritty dramas such as Time's The Dirty Dozen*, and comedies like Time's The Naked Gun Time series, where he played the straight man to Leslie Nielsen's chaos. His versatility and authenticity made him beloved by audiences and respected by fellow actors. He never relied on glamour or fame, preferring solid craftsmanship and humility. Away from the camera, George Kennedy lived a quiet, grounded life. He was devoted to his family and faith, spending his later years writing, attending veterans events, and mentoring young actors. He once said that his goal was not to be a star, but to be remembered as a good man who did his job well. When news of his passing spread, the tributes were heartfelt. Colleagues called him Hollywood's everyman, a professional who brought integrity to every role. His final sleep marked the end of a career built on resilience and honesty. George Kennedy left behind more than 200 film and television credits, yet his truest legacy was the decency that shone quietly through every character he ever played. Number 15. Joan Fontaine. On the afternoon of December 15, 2013, at her home in Carmel by the Sea, California, Joan Fontaine passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 96 years old. Her longtime housekeeper found her resting in bed with a book open beside her, a scene as graceful and composed as the actress herself. Her health had been declining slowly, but she remained alert and cheerful until the end, still corresponding with friends and fans. Joan Fontaine was one of the great icons of Hollywood's golden age, known for her elegance, subtlety, and quiet strength on screen. Born in Tokyo in 1917 to British parents, she moved to California as a child and began acting in the 1930s. Her rise to fame came with Alfred Hitchcock's Times, Rebecca Times in 1940, where she played the timid young wife opposite Laurence Olivier. The performance earned her an Academy Award nomination and made her a household name. The following year, she won the Oscar for Best Actress in Time's Suspicion*, becoming one of the youngest women ever to do so. Her career flourished through the 1940s and 50s with films like Time's Jane Eyre*, Letter from an Unknown Woman*, and Time's The Constant Nymph*. Audiences admired her for portraying vulnerability with depth and intelligence, a quality that set her apart from her contemporaries. Off-screen, her life was marked by both triumph and tension. Her long-standing rivalry with her sister, actress Olivia de Havilland, became one of Hollywood's most famous family feuds. Despite their differences, both women achieved remarkable success and left a shared legacy of talent and discipline. In her later years, Joan Fontaine retired from acting and settled in Carmel, where she devoted herself to gardening, writing, and raising her dogs. She remained fiercely independent and witty, often saying that peace and solitude were the best rewards of her long life. Those who knew her described her as elegant yet stubborn, someone who lived entirely on her own terms. When news of her passing reached the public, film historians and fans remembered her as the embodiment of old Hollywood grace, intelligent, mysterious, and timeless. Her final rest was as gentle as her performances, a quiet closing act to a life that shone brightly across decades of cinema. If you enjoy stories of Hollywood's legends, remember to subscribe for more timeless tales. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode.